Hi, I'm Crystal. Today we're going to be making some stash busting cards using scrap paper and circle punches. So I just went through all of Pinterest and YouTube and collected all the ideas I could find about ways to use my circle punches to make a bunch of cards. Wanted to use up some scrap paper, and I'm on a quest to make several hundred unique handmade thank you cards to send to my coworkers when I retire in 2025. And I am counting the days. I can't even tell you. So these fall into three main groups, and the first group is the split circle group. And the main idea is that you take your circle punches and cut 3 to 5 circles in different papers. And I will put all of the measurements and instructions in the description box, but really this is going to depend on the scrap paper and the circle punches or dies that you have on hand. The orphan pages out of paper packs, the scrap, whatever you've got to work with. Once you've got all of your circles, you're going to cut them in half. So whether you fold them in half and cut with scissors or use your paper trimmer, just cut all those circles in half. Once they're cut in half, we're going to glue them into a stack, and just exactly like it looks. I'm going to take those circles one at a time, and if your lineup is not quite perfect, once they've been stacked up, you can use your scissors to even that up a little bit if you need to. Now I had 2 circle punches that were a little too close together in size, so I ended up discarding one of the circles. You do need a little bit of separation in order to see all of the paper in this stack. So once you've got everything glued in place, that is basically the entire concept of these split circle cards. You just arrange them in a pleasing way. Now one variation on this is this swirl design. Now here, instead of 3 to 5 different size circles, you need 2 large, 2 medium, and then 3 small. And those instructions are in the description box if the video doesn't give you the idea. I think this orange color and the swirl design gives a really mod feel, really takes me back to the 70s. So I kind of like it. And it's a good use for orange scraps, which I don't otherwise have much call for. So once you've got everything glued up and attached, then it's just a matter of attaching it to the front of your card and attaching that sentiment. So here's our mod swirl, a split circle in yellow, the split circle in green, and then the one in pink. Next we're going to move on to the group that I think of as Punch a Bunch. And so the first one of these is just a slew of 1/2-inch circles in various shades. I do like working in one color. I think it makes it a little bit easier to get a cohesive look, but there's no reason you couldn't use a variety of colors here. And I'm not taking any particular care to arrange the colors in any particular way, and I'm just covering most of the front of the card, and I didn't get my placement quite right, but I will cut off the overhang. Now we're moving on to slightly larger circles, although I think any size would work. And the arrangement is one that looks like fish scales or roof shingles. And I'm just going to cover up the entire front of the card, not worrying too much about the overhang because I will just trim that off. And once I'm leaving some space at the top for the sentiment. But once you've got all of your shingles in place, then you can put a little bit of ribbon or a strip of paper at the top to cover that one edge, and we're done. Next we're going to move on to a slightly easier one. It takes fewer punches, and that's this 1-inch circle arranged in a large grid. It's a very clean and simple look, very quick and easy to make. And then from here we're going to go to the 4th variation, which is a party garland. So here I've gone back to that 1/2-inch punch, that smallest size, and I've punched a variety of pastel colors. So it's the only non-monochromatic card, I guess. And it doesn't have to be pastels. It could be brights, it could be metallics, it could be all the same color. And I'm just gluing them down into a garland pattern. I haven't drawn anything on the card in advance. It's a pretty random approach. I'm just trying to get a little bit of a swoop in as if the garland were hanging from something. But I think however you end up arranging the circles will probably end up looking just fine. And once we get everything glued down, this ends up being a very quick card as well, although it does take a lot of punches. I have the counts for each of these cards in the description box as well if you're curious. So the garland, once we've got that in place, there's room at the bottom for the sentiment here as well. And I think this would make a lovely happy birthday card too. So now we're going to take a look at the finished card. So here's the large grid. Here's the roof shingles, the tiny grid, and the party garland. Now we're going to move on to the group that I think of as lining them up. And we're starting out with some negative space. So here I've got a strip that I've cut 3 punches from. And once I've got the negative space down, I'm just going to decorate it with more circle punches. Very straightforward. And then we're going to move on from this one to another one that uses some negative space. So here I've punched some 1-inch circles in the front of the card. They're deliberately wonky. And I'm going to cover that negative space using some double-sided tape and some transparency film. So my office moved, gosh, it has to be 15 years ago now, and I wound up with most of a box of transparency film. So that has ended up being the lifetime supply of transparency film. I am rich in transparency film. And this is really old technology, but it's, you know, what we used to use for meetings before the ubiquitous PowerPoint. You would actually print onto the transparency film and then use an overhead projector. So that's definitely an unlocked memory for me. I haven't done a meeting like that in a zillion years. And frankly, the PowerPoint is easier to use and better, conveys more information. So I used the same size punch to punch out of the large circles of pattern and solid paper that I did to punch in the front of the card. I guess you could probably glue down the large circles whole intact and then punch through the whole stack at once, probably. I wasn't sure my punch would actually carry through all the layers of cardstock. But once I've got those wonky circles down, I'm just going to decorate the front a little bit more. And that's all there is to that card. So here's our finished card with the wonky circles. Here's our negative space purple card. And here is our 2 stacks of 5 circles, and then just a line of pink circles. Those are so straightforward I didn't even film them, but you can get the idea, I think, from the photo. So now I'm going to flip through all of the finished cards one at a time so you can take a look at all of them in one place. And while I have been making these thank you cards for my coworkers, I do want to take this opportunity to thank you for being here today and spending a few minutes with me. I hope that this range of ideas will inspire you to get out your punches or dies and your scrap paper and make something new out of it. I really enjoyed making this group of cards, and some of them were really quick and easy. Some of them were a little bit more time intensive, but I think all of them turned out pretty well, and I hope that some idea from this group is helpful to you. I think that this was probably one of the easier ones, the large grid. That one was really fast, although I bet the one that I make over and over again is probably going to be this party garland. This stack of 10 circles was also very quick, and it was a good use for some pattern paper that I'd been rejecting over and over again. I think this one is my favorite, this line of 5 large circles. So quick. The sentiment is in negative space, and I think that turned out pretty well. The wonky circles were a lot of fun, though, and I like that clear element. You don't always have to have a shaker every time you use some clear material, so I think that's fun. So here we are, the end of the cards. So thank you for joining me today.